Chelsea. Good morning. Whew. It's good to be back in the land of the living. Did some underworld journeying in the past week or so. Hey Megan, I got your tea. Thank you, love. Oh shit. I was afraid to do this. Go. Good morning, good morning. Welcome in, everyone. It's a beautiful blessing. Thank you so much. I hope all of your Samhain, Halloween, All Saints Day, whatever you choose to organize around, I hope it was powerful indeed for you. It certainly was something for me. I feel like a deeper part of my path kind of opened up for me. And it definitely is going to take some time to integrate because there's definitely medicine involved in that whole process. So, those things, they don't feel super clear immediately, but, the experience of putting yourself in an altered state, with this intention of exploration, with this intention of going into the underworld a bit, with this intention of deepening your understanding of yourself, which these are all like heavy scorpionic, energies. I really feel like, you're inviting a process that unfolds over time, and it's, it can be an unnerving and a, bedrock shaking thing, but the thing that I think I'm realizing more and more, and I'm being just in a real sense comforted by, is this understanding that with the work in the physical, we really are making ourselves dexterous for the spiritual. Like, I really believe that, my physical practices this year, especially because this has been the year of the solid ritual, it's been the most committed I've been to my own personal self-care. And, I've been a psychonaut like for over a decade at this point. And so exploring with plant medicines isn't unfamiliar to me, and it isn't an inherently scary space, but it is a challenging one every single fucking time. Especially because I hit a point in my path with mushrooms, especially, where it stopped being like, oh, this is just fun and pretty patterns and, a body high and all that shit. Like, it was, if I had the right dose, I would have like this mystical experience that, I don't know anyone else who, everyone else that I know who has mystical experiences on it, they're not exactly the same. Like, this is not I think a space that we all necessarily occupy unlike some other psychedelics where I feel like people are really exploring very similar, if not the exact same realms. I feel mushrooms are a teacher that work with you and where you are and what your DNA is and what your whole genetic story is, along with your experiential data. Like, all of that is this co-creative narrative or story that gets woven for you as a means to, assimilate where your strongholds are and where your obstacles are and where those blockages still live. And God, I fucking got called on my shit in such a real way, because it's like, you can get to a point in your physical practice where you are like rationalizing everything, and this I think would be, an indication that you're at least treading on the doorstep of spiritual bypassing. And so it's really something to be mindful of. If you're constantly running things through the fine-tooth comb of rationality, it might be an indication that we've gotten a little imbalanced in one direction, not the wrong direction. Just we're using one tool too much, you know? Like, I love to bring up the way Einstein talked about the rational mind versus the intuition. He was like, the rational mind is a powerful tool, and the intuition a sacred gift, but we live in a society that's like glorified the tool and forgotten the gift. And I think that's important to understand, like, in terms of thinking through what we do all day, every day, you know? Like, we need to be really, really real about the fact that human beings, it is in our best interest to rationalize our behavior, rationalize our thought process, rationalize our story, rationalize our limitations, rationalize our judgments, rationalize, like, you know, our grievances, our complaints, our reason for being unsatisfied, malcontent, you know? We are constantly advocating for our smallness, like, in so many different layers of life, and it has so much to do with this attachment to the idea that we know what we think, and we know what we believe, and we know that we're right, and we know that it's, like, good to hold all these opinions that I claim as my own. You know, that's something the fucking mushrooms kind of guided me through this past week. Like, I took a dose I haven't taken, like, in probably 5 years at least. And it took me to this level where it was just like, you know, I had my mystical experience that's pretty, like, it's consistent for me when I get to a certain level. And then very sneakily, I dropped down into this space where very much, like, after I kind of went through this period of the trip, I came to realize and understand that what I was seeing was, like, the immediate shift down from a higher dimension of consciousness and understanding into the realm where the ego populates everything that exists. So this is literally like the world that the unawakened human is existing in, where we are constantly projecting on the screen of the world, you know, what our ego says to ourselves and what we've been said to by other egos. And it feels like the fabric of reality. So it's very much like we are fish in water. We don't recognize that this is the whole realm that we're projecting. It's all ego-based, and it has to be that way. That's the level of conscious awareness that we're here at. And, you know, I feel like a lot of spiritual traditions are about being able to vibrate out of this space and to ascend and to, you know, awaken to the reality of higher dimensions. And that part I especially agree with. But the rest of it, I'm not so sure. I wonder if it's not like our full, you know, charge here, since we're manifesting in this realm and we're perceiving things as we are with our, you know, ego-colored atmosphere that we have a really hard time perceiving. Maybe the goal is just to be as aware as possible and see what the opening that results in that awareness gets us to. Because what I find is that the thing that I was challenged on the most is, like, anytime you are thinking you know something, you are full blown buying the story of your ego. And it's not that that's not functional and you can't use that. I think a magician's whole job is to use their ego to construct a reality that matches their own will. So I have no problem with that. The thing is, we need to be aware of what's happening functionally. And be aware that that's the nature of the reality that we see in front of us as a fucking society. That's what has happened over time. We've continued to tell the stories. Everybody continues to corroborate the story. We're all singing the same tune. Consensus reality is a congenital hallucination. We are all agreeing to this story. That's the thing with the illusion that is Maya. That's the illusion that, you know, the ego has a field day projecting onto. And it's like, what are we to do about this? You're supposed to fucking watch it. You're supposed to recognize there's a space within you that can see that that's happening. and recognize, okay, if I can see all of this, and I can see that this is the coloration of our dimension, this is the experience of having the antenna that is a human brain. This is not a personal struggle. That was the breakthrough. That was the freedom. Something that like my partner has been saying like over and over and just continuously helping me ground back into is this awareness that all of these processes are so impersonal, and having this like real experience of seeing Jesus Christ, the entirety of my reality is a projection of my ego. Like I see this like, and I recognize and I can witness like that other people are doing the exact same thing. You know, especially in those states where you're just open to the awareness of it all. It's a bit overwhelming. It's definitely sensory, like hyperloading, but it's a very beautiful thing to actually be able to witness it and really identify with the witnessing versus the doing of it. And that really drove home to me, like how much we don't have to carry this burden alone. It's ours as a collective to walk and work with. Like you don't have to identify with your struggles. You can say, wow, this is a struggle of humanity that I'm witnessing right now in a real way. What am I gonna do with what's here? I was watching Lord of the Rings the other day, which is a great tradition of mine at this time of year. And one of the most standout moments for me between like Frodo and Gandalf is when, you know, Frodo says, you know, I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had ever happened. And Gandalf says to him, you know, so do all beings who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All that they have to decide is what to do with the time that they have been given. And you know, your life experience, what's in front of you, our society currently, the state of mind of your family and those who surround you, this is the time you've been given. This is the flow of life that you must learn to accept. These are the raw materials that you, if you believe in yourself as the magician, have to work with. So it's like, this is the material, the raw materia, the lead of life. And that's not in a judgmental sense. It's in the action sense, right? So as an alchemist, we look at this life as a base material. Here's what cause and effect has led to. So I take this, I realize the power of my beliefs, my words, my mind, my thoughts, you know, what I speak and project over myself, what I continuously repeat, and what I like practice, especially my emotional states and their power to pull in experience to me and attract things that feel the same way that I feel, as well as the power of my action to get the ball rolling and to make things happen and to, you know, condense things from the imagination into real space and time. And the power of like, you know, our ability to sustain that action and put our heads down and to the work, knowing that we're going to reap a reward. But that there is work time. This is something that I think many people miss. Or maybe it's just an esoteric understanding I have of the Pentacles, where it's like, this is not just your manifestation. This is not just your reward. This is, can you sustain the action? Can you be realistic about the way time works in the physical dimension? You can be all like seeing you can time travel in the world of the astral. You can time travel in a visionary state. You can time travel in the meditative realms. But here, in 4-dimensional space-time, like, or 3-dimensional space-time on Earth, in the 3D, in the 4, or the Earth symbol is essentially a square in Hindu mythology. So it's just like, you know, this is the structure of the world that we exist in, and there are limits in it. And one of those is the way time works. Right? And so whether you get to see the result of your work is whether you're willing to be steadfast and faithful to the work, regardless of what you're seeing all around you. It's about knowing, okay, what's in front of me is, again, the base material that I have, and then the power of my mind, my emotions, my actions, and my faithfulness. Faithfulness is about sticking to something, regardless of what's going on in the world around you, whether you're being rewarded, whether you're being shunned for your attitude, or your position, or how you're moving. Regardless, it's like knowing yourself, right, like truly enough. Being connected and knowing what you stand for and standing for it, no matter what the outer world is showing you. And, you know, this is a huge, I would go so far as to say test of the universe. It's a test of whether we are ready to walk into the next level of our spiritual journeys, I feel, the next level of awareness and experience and opportunity. We have to show that we're dexterous enough to like be chill with things not popping off immediately. And this is an unfortunate part of being in this society at this present time. We live in the most convenient society that's ever existed. So it is really against our nature to be patient and to hold fast to what we believe we are doing, even when we don't see the results of our work, even when we're, you know, we have nothing to show for it yet. But this is an important and crucial part of the understanding of the physics of change and transformation in this world. You know, like I was talking about, your emotional states, like they stir up the vortex of your existence, and this is what is pulling universal energy into your life. So the shape of that, so the shape of your emotional attitudes, the tone that you're carrying through your life is pulling experiences, people, and opportunities that resonate with the emotional state that you yourself are carrying. Again, that is the evidence of like ego's projection onto this world. It's like what you have bought into that your ego has told you, that is what you are going to feel like. And when you feel like you are shaped like that, the vessel that you are, the cup energy that you contain becomes the shape of, I expect that experience. I expect life to tell me I'm small or unworthy or unlovable or, you know, can't find my calling, my purpose, my meaning, or, you know, I can't connect to something, whatever. It's like anything that you tell yourself, anything that you buy into, anything that you act in honor of, you are telling the universe, this is the shape of my world. Fill accordingly. Okay, I believe universal energy is neutral. That's why it's really important that when you see what you might consider negative side effects of you changing your life, people are punishing you by leaving your life because you're changing. We need to stop that whole narrative. You are not being punished or rewarded for anything you're doing. You are being matched in vibrational tone. Plain and simple, period. It's not this. There's no one here to dish out a spanking or give you a cookie. That's not happening. You are creating the experiences of your reality by how you see things and what you expect to show up. Unfortunately, many of us grew up in, you know, highly Protestant, Catholic, Baptist upbringings, you know, especially if you're from the South in the Bible Belt like I was. But, you know, even in the Northeast, there's that huge Catholic influence, which has so much shit about our, you know, our sin nature and, you know, what parts of us are dirty and you know, disgraceful before God and like, you know, what's unclean and what's not. Like, we have all these precepts that are just, they are wired in. They are the water of our collective ego. And so it's really hard to recognize that that's behind what we perceive as our personal opinions. This is why it's so important to be aware that the ego is projecting your reality constantly. If you're aware of this, it's that constant like, okay, why do I feel this? Instead of, yeah, I feel this. Because feelings are not facts. Feelings are programmed responses to what you believe. Because what you believe programs or pops out your thoughts. It's the bedrock from which thought life is inspired. Through the internal dialogue is inspired through the bedrock of your beliefs. And your beliefs are shaped by what you continuously act out. So this is a funny thing. Your parents could say nothing to you about money, about relationships, about sex, about any of this stuff. They could shame nothing. They could give you no real, like, hard boundaries. You know, they could have been great parents. But if they were acting as if, like if they were hiding their affection, or if they fought in front of you, or, you know, any of these little things, this is behavior that you are getting received as like, this is how you act through life as. And all of this communication is like nonverbal. So you don't have to have experienced a tyrannical upbringing to be the offshoot of the atmosphere of our collective ego throughout time. That's the whole point. And that's what's really beautiful. Like, that understanding really depersonalizes the whole situation. So your parents did not fuck you up. Life fucked them up, they passed it on, okay? And you're behaving in an order like just in alignment with that, and that's where the bedrock of all your struggles come from, because that's how humans work. We monkey see, monkey do. Monkey see a pattern, monkey fall into the pattern. Patterns become really nearly impossible to escape. Because you know what? When you've practiced something over and over again, and you've stimulated a vortex, and you haven't changed the direction of that vortex in a really long time, that is a lot of fucking momentum. How do you change something that is like rooted into your life so deeply, so ancestrally? You have to depersonalize the thing. You have to start seeing this as a collective issue that we all take part in. We've all had to carry. And you have to start really from an authentic space of compassion. That's what I believe. And we have to get to that space of compassion by recognizing our folly as creatures. All the ways that the ego wants to lie to us and wants to excuse ourselves for our kinds of behavior and wants to believe we know what's going on and wants to fall in love with the creations of our own mind. That's the problem with thinking minds. And that's the problem that we've come into by glorifying this tool that is the rational and logical mind. We have to be holistic beings moving forward. You know, if we really want to interface with what life has to offer us, and if we want to be able to clearly see our own path and discover it in the right amount of time, we have to be real about the fact that we don't fucking know shit. A knowing mind is a closed mind. Let that sink in for a bit, because so many of us are striving to know what my next step is, know what's right for me, know if this person is safe for me to be in a relationship with, know whether I'm going to get hurt this time or not, know whether this working environment is going to be right for me. You do not get to know from the sidelines of your life. Okay? And if you get to this space where you practice the depersonalization, you practice wow, my ego really is invested in keeping me in the same space that it's defined me as, because that's what's comfortable. So whatever I'm afraid of, whatever I've got a rationalization against, that's an indication that there's it's like a snapping moment, oh God, you're going to expand. This is the direction that you expand in, but we don't want that, right? So resistance gets all excited and gets really invested in you staying the same. If you're willing to push through those moments, depersonalizing the experiences of failures, mishaps, being able to know whether it'll be right or wrong, and just you adopting a growth-based mindset that says, when I try new things, I expand. When I expand, I know more through experiential wisdom. And when I have more pockets of experience and resources of reference to pull from, I can have more creative solutions. I can make connections that weren't there before. That is consciousness expanding. You don't need fucking psychedelics to do this, you guys. You have to change things in your life, though. Big things have to change, but they start with little things, right? And that's important to understand, because all of us want to change our lives overnight. We want the reward overnight. Guess what? The only reward coming from accomplishing things in your own life, goal setting and achieving, working towards self-betterment, is the process of living your life with an awareness intention. That's the only reward. You will move towards your goal and you'll achieve it, and you'll feel a split second wow, I got here. But immediately, the nature of the human being is to want more and to want to grow more and want to expand more, and it's never satisfied. So that if you're looking for the fulfillment at the top of the mountain, you're not going to find her there. You have to find your fulfillment in the process. And when people get stuck in future tripping or ruminating about the past while they're on the process, they're missing the entire experience. This experience of sitting with the uncomfortability, sitting with the unknown, learning to find joy, learning to get comfortable in uncomfortable situations. This is the whole thing that you need to be able to sustain your energy at the next level. And if you get caught up in the old patterns of when is this going to happen, and it's not worth working for if I can't immediately feel better from it, then you are saying to your body that those cheap quick dopamine releases are more important than the transformation that you actually will for your life. And what we do, y'all, practice equals belief. So if you're worried about why you don't believe in yourself, recognize it's not personal. It's simply because we don't have the man hours into it or the human hours. We have not put the time. We have not paid our spiritual currency of time and attention in the direction enough. And we've got to recognize that it is the most uncomfortable to get started, which is why I suggest take the babiest of step, take the smallest of bite, just get moving in that direction. Dedicate yourself to something. And this helps you build confidence in yourself, because if you can take one little baby step, listen, I know you might judge it in the beginning, but like once you've gotten 30 days, 60 days down and you're like, shit, I have done that every single day for 2 months. I've told my brain that I'm going to do something different. I've used a different hand to brush my teeth, like I've done things in a different order. I've, made sure I got like a deep breathing session in. I meditated for a minute twice today, like whatever the fucking little thing is. You don't know the expansion that you get from actually showing up to that until you're on the other side of the time put in. So again, you've got to pay to play here, y'all. Which is, I know a lot of like the anti-capitalist like thought process goes into this kind of weird entitlement thing, okay? Where it's like, we shouldn't have to work for what's here. I'm like, you know what? Every fucking creature on this planet has to struggle against Mother Earth to survive. She does provide, but there is a struggle to get that. We do have to pay to be here. You either have to run away from your predator, or if you have to hunt down your prey. You have to gather your resources. You have to build a shelter. Like, we need to get realistic about the conditions that we find ourselves in, because if you hold some belief that is against the nature of things, that is a cognitive dissonance that's always going to trip you up. And a cognitive dissonance is when we believe one thing and we think another. So like the action, like basically if something in real life is showing you different and you think, oh, I shouldn't have to work or do stuff to exist, like you're going to be in conflict with the flow of life. You're going to be holding attention to how things actually flow. This is why I feel so strongly about us understanding the nature of, psychology and brain chemistry and what our food does to us and how taking care of the physical vessel affects how we think. Because if we look at all of these things in one way, like science has basically done over the past 100 years, people get really specialized into one area, and that's basically like compartmentalizing the bodily experience, and we can't do that. We're recognizing more and more every day that everything is a holistic system. We need the environment just as the environment needs us. Like, we produce stuff that trees need and trees produce stuff we need. Like, there is a balance of everything here. And our whole bodies, like they're affecting how we feel and think. Literally, what you eat determines the voices in your gut brain. Like, what you program your body to take in by what you eat is determining what you crave. It's also determining all these other things, like how your blood sugar fluctuates and whether you have like sustainable energy throughout the day. All of these things are co-creating your full experience. So it's like, I have to look at everything from a realistic standpoint. What's actually going on here? Not, what do I want to be true so it's easy for me? Which is a pattern I've recognized in myself. My ego wants to project that easiest way for me to do something. And you know what's funny is when the intention is pure, when the intention is to shift, sometimes the lazy, like, how about I just do this thing, is the version of doing it terribly. So don't judge yourself for how you're going to get started. Because I want to tell you guys something, and I've said it before, but probably, who knows who's missed it, whatever. But my guides were like harping on me super hard to like get started working on a book. And my lazy like parlay to that was like, how about I start doing these fucking lives, huh? How about that? Like, there's a lot less work for me. But the funny thing is like, I've talked to so many people I'm really, really close with, and I'm like, it's incredible. I could never have known that this would happen when I started it. But I know that the contents in my book are going to come straight from these lives. Like, it's incredible that I've been able to see that I do have a cohesive, message that I want to share. And it's come out through my like cheap, bargaining tool with my highest self. Like, that's a funny fucking thing to recognize. And it's another fucking funny thing to hone in on, which is the fact that no matter how much your ego gets in the way, if you set the intention on the highest self, no matter how you fuck up, you're still failing in the right direction, y'all. Get clear about your intention of what you're doing with your life long term in an energetic sense. This doesn't have to be full vision board. I know exactly how everything's going to look, because you know what? Your life can shift and change, and you should make space for that. And it's fine to like visualize having specific things, but I think it's so much more powerful to visualize how you want to feel in your life, in your body, to other people. What kind of relationships do you want around you? What do you want the days to feel like? What do you want? What kind of experiences do you want? Like, that's a better picture. And if you have that clear in your mind and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get there, surrender your ego, surrender needing to know, surrender having certainty about this process, but claim what you do know, which is what you desire. Capital D, desire. And I feel like when you connect to these emotional states versus things, and versus like, it looking a specific way, you're way more likely to come into contact with what your heart has for you versus what society has programmed you to think the need you're trying to fill looks like. Because that's what advertising has been doing for, 60 plus years. Has been trying to tell you that what you genuinely seek looks like a sneaker, looks like a bottle, looks like this clothing designer brand, looks like a house like this, looks like being able to vacation here. And maybe it is those things for you, but only you get to know that. And I think when we connect to emotional states and overall vibes that we want to experience and how we want to feel day to day, wow, I think that's a way more powerful and authentic pull. I think it's way easier to come into contact with what's true for us, at least in this capacity. And there's always space for that to evolve and for our minds to evolve in the vision. But if you project that forward, y'all, and you're clear about that, fucking go explore. Like, that's what we're here to do. Stop thinking you have to know. Stop thinking you have to be right. Stop thinking you have to look good to other people. Stop thinking your parents have to approve. Stop thinking your friends have to get it. Stop thinking that you have to make money off of it. Stop thinking that you have to find the one-size-fits-all formula of the universe for your life. Start enjoying the experience. Start recognizing that who you are is built in day-to-day choices. Our actions build our lives. So every day you have, a section of hours that you get to vote with how your life will go. You have certain things you have to do to maintain yourself. You gotta eat, you gotta sleep, maybe you gotta go to work, maybe you gotta go to school. Those are responsibilities you can't shirk. But there's a space that you get to vote with what you're building for the future. So you have to take responsibility for that. But at the end of the day, it's like we can also really rest in the impersonality of all of this. That it is in the nature of human beings to not be content and to want to strive for more, to want to expand and want to evolve and want to grow, and for all of that to still be scary, and for all of our habitual patterns to be the thing that is still carrying this gravitational pull in our lives. And, I was talking about it a lot with the new moon card for the Scorpio season astrological month ahead reading, where it really doesn't matter what we're working towards, whether that's an internal or an external thing. But now may be the time to really carve out some more space for that and be real with ourselves. Like, you might rationalize every day after you get home from work, wow, I've really just given my all to work. Like, I really just need this time to veg out. Well, what could you do? What can you marry with vegging out that also moves you in that space towards feeling the way you want to feel? Because maybe what you want to feel is energetic all throughout your day, and you're experiencing the antithesis of that. So what you've been doing is
placating it with sitting down and vegging out or whatever, you do. And you gotta like put the pieces together. It's like, I feel, lethargic at this time because I've trained my body that we're gonna just sit down and stagnate after I've done this. So maybe as a doorway to doing something different, that first 10 minutes that I'm home, I'm going to do something that's centering. I'm going to do something that's more active, or maybe I'm going to, meditate or go for a walk, or, do something that's outside of my normal. And then if I still feel like vegging, then I'm allowed to. You know what I mean? That's the kind of like thing that we should feel cool doing. And I know a lot of us don't, especially if you're like me, who's an analytical, like, better, you should do better kind, or a perfectionist, which it's like, if you're not all the way, like, you can recognize this behavior you want to change and you're ready to change it, then you're not good enough. That's fucked up, because that's not realistic. That's not how human beings work. That's not how physics work. That's not how the nature of change works. And when we recognize that, now I can depersonalize. I can stop seeing myself as a lazy fuck. I can see myself as somebody who has practiced one mode of being, and I recognize that to change the mode of being is an effort, is a process. It takes time. So I can excuse myself from the shame, the guilt, the like, all the more ego projection of what your experience is in changing. And that's the difference between somebody who really grows and expands from every part of their journey to someone who feels like, influxes when it's positive and really low times when it's negative. It's like, I understand highs and lows are necessary in life, but on some level, we want to master the ability to take on more. The responsibility for more influence. And that is going to be more tumultuous. So we have to grow in like resilience. We have to get to the state where like, being broke doesn't bother me. No one want to hang out with me because I don't go to bars anymore. Or, I'm going to be, sipping mushroom tea and meditating, or whatever the fucking thing that you like spending your time with, when you actually ask yourself what feels good for me to do, right? Like, you're cool with that. You're cool with not having a partner. You're cool to be alone. You're cool when your best friends move away. You're cool when, you get downsized. You're cool when, like, you recognize I'm not, like, interested in being where I am 40 hours a week. When you get to that space where those things don't scare you anymore, and you recognize, like, it's cool, like, if I have to, like script for a few weeks until I figure this shit out, it's cool. I have all the resources, I have all the tools, and this experience of discontent is an invitation to move and do something about it. That's like recognizing that you are in your body, and, like, your body is giving you fucking valuable information. It's a whole building of trust situation where it's like, I set out things to do. I do little things in honor of it so that I can build up momentum. And I trust that my body needs to build in energy, and I don't expect too much out of myself. That's important about valuing ourselves appropriately. It's not about seeing the ultimate of our potential and being like, why aren't you there yet? That's not it at all. Not it. Because the whole thing about you reaching your potential is you being exactly where you are. And all the ways that you can fuck up and mess up and believe the negative stories right now, all of that will give you valuable data about yourself and about life if you hold that space of awareness that my ego is projecting what's happening here, and you keep coming back to that. There will be moments where you're lost in the story and you're just like, I know exactly what's going on here, and why aren't they doing that, and why did they avoid this, and why aren't they saying this, and why can't we communicate clearly, and da-da-da-da-da-da, and you will think you know. But if you come back to, wow, maybe I don't know anything that's going on here. Maybe one of the things I said, meaning like we're not communicating with each other, is the exact reason why I have no clue what's going on here. Maybe they are tripping in a completely different direction about what's going on here. Because that, you know what, every time I check in with people, that is 90% the truth. We are all, like, if we're not talking and the vibe gets a little weird and you start kind of bringing up what you're thinking about, it's like, we're on two different continents. That's the nature of the ego. And the ego really believes that it knows some shit. And it knows some things. That's why it's so, like, gripping to you because it knows exactly what you've been through, knows what you've seen modeled, and it has a very good way of projecting that movie preemptively for you. But when you start moving in a new direction, married with having your eyes set on a new direction, no matter how you move, like I said, even if you're falling and failing the whole way there, if you're aimed in the right direction, then you're failing in the right direction. And the failure is containing of so much data, so much information for our growth, so much information about who we truly are, the authentic self, that it's like, it's a shame to hold yourself back from potential failure. Success and failure should be held in equal measure. You know, we still got, who's in it? Mars is still in Libra. You know, having that balanced action of understanding, like, you know, success and failure both give us understanding of a situation. Success tells us where our proficiencies are. Failures tell us where our weaknesses are. And you know what? I think that's, if you had to weigh them out, I would say that failure has a little bit more of an edge over success. Because when it teaches you what you're not good at, it gives you so much space. Like, do I want to get better at that? Is this something that I enjoy actually? Do I feel passionate about exploring this more? What's my frustration telling me? Are stories of my unworthiness or my incapability coming up? Is this an area that triggers my limitation mindset? There's so much data that comes with us fucking up. That, like, we got to learn how to impersonally embrace this and recognize that everyone else is going through this too. And if they're putting on a brave face, hey, that's their choice. But, like, we need to just know, and not in a haughty kind of like, dude, yeah, you may look all good on Instagram, but I know it's fucking shit over there. Not like that. But I know, like, it fucking sucks being me sometimes. It fucking sucks knowing that I want to be over here and I'm here. I gotta imagine you know what that's like. So I'm gonna have compassion for myself and patience for my process and compassion for you and patience for your process, even though I don't know anything about your fucking process. I don't know anything about what you've really been through, and I definitely don't know what stage of the journey you're at. So I'm gonna just fucking mind my business, stay in my own goddamn lane, concern myself with myself, and if I'm gonna put something out there, project something onto you, let it be compassion, let it be patience, let it be grace, because these are the things that I want in my roughest times. These are the things that I desire, you know, in my partnerships and in my friendships, in my relationships with my family, and when I'm working with clients. I want that same understanding, patience, and grace, so I'm gonna give that. If you want things in life, be a gardener of it. Don't expect it to show up for you. Cultivate it in yourself. Recognize that you don't know. And that's a goddamn beautiful thing. You know, I mean, there's so much space for creativity, for new ways of expressing ourselves, for new ways of living life, for new ways of sustaining this world and our livelihoods. Like, if we just stop telling all the fucking stories that don't help or build us up anyway, we will start to have space for new stuff to flow in. But you have to be comfortable with emptiness. It's huge. You have to be comfortable with the lag time of the universe when you are changing your vibration. And know that anytime you make a new move, anytime you have a novelty experience, that is literally anytime you do something different than you normally do it, outside the habit, outside the norm, outside the beaten path, outside that normal path you usually take. Anytime you do that, you're creating neuroplasticity and neurogenesis in your brain. Your brain is getting bigger and it's getting more flexible, and you're getting more neurons to fire together in a new place. And the more you connect that with other behaviors and the more you start to string that together, the more you work on that, the more you're creating a neural net. A neural net starts to take up like real estate in your brain, and that starts to hold gravity. And this starts to feel like a gravitational answer to your old vortex. But that takes consistent practice. You have to continuously tell your brain these new things. And it doesn't matter what the new things are. That's the beauty of it. Just start piecing together some things that you would like to shift and like to work on and like to grow in. And you will start to do it. It's like, so I've had so many people be like, I don't understand how, like, deep breathing or jumping jacks or just like, doing my dishes immediately turned into going to yoga and meditating regularly and, having a ritual practice. But it did. Like, it just was these little actions just to get me out of the state of non-doing that built up a momentum where it was easier to make these choices that really ended up where I want to be. And again, even when we don't know, that's the beauty of magic, is we can use the process of ritual, which is to imbue any action or really even any object. This is the nature of making a talisman. It's when a magician like imprints and imbues some item, like dedicates some item to some purpose. That's an intention being married with either a physical action or a physical object. And this is like, for that practitioner, is imbuing the intention with it. And so it's a symbolic act that speaks to the subconscious. So if you don't know the first right step, ritual is your doorway into transforming the subconscious. All you have to do is pick your intention, pick an object or pick an action that will represent that. And if you want to get all fucking cool and marry it with moon phases and like, get the stars on your fucking side, like, then do that. Imbue as much correspondence or as little. You can keep it as simple as possible because remember, your intention is the magical force behind it. Crystals and astrology and all this shit, I think I use this all as supplementary as it builds up my confidence because I'm standing on these containers that are thousands or millions of years old. But I still need my personal experience as the lightning rod of my action and my inspiration. This has to be about me. It has to be what feels right for me, And so y'all, like, I don't know. I think we're being invited to really, really visualize something visionary for our lives. Like whatever your intention was around the new moon. We've got a first quarter moon in Aquarius tonight. It's a good time to kind of check in. What kind of action have I taken? What are the obstacles towards me moving in that direction? If you identify what are the obstacles towards you making a move in that direction, you will start to unwind what is the vortex that's got the gravitational pull on you. And when you have that awareness of it, and again, if you depersonalize it, it becomes really easy to just make a married action, an intentional married action in a new direction. And that's what's required to get back on track, to tap back in, We pulled the 8 of Pentacles for this new moon. So it's like, really building on that sense of who you are in honor of your challenges and recognizing that working through those things is going to give you like that long-term staying power that you need for the next level in life. That's really fucking vital right now. So check back in with like what your intentions were for this new moon and, see if today, there's another action you could take that expands on that builds on that makes another connection in the neural net that you're trying to create here. Because it's about like accumulating a little bit in the beginning. Building momentum is about accumulating energy in a new direction. And again, it's really important to recognize when you start to change the shape of your vortex, there is lag time, okay, between when the universe can actually fill it. Because when we are relinquishing and releasing old shit, we don't yet have a clear picture of what we want it to go in its space. So when we lack clarity, we get experiences of lacked clarity. So that's important to understand. If you're in the phase of confusion, you need to recognize that is a physical reaction to a change you've instigated. And it's part and parcel of the process. And if you can accept that and realize, again, this is not about you. It's not your lack of awareness. It's not, I don't know the path well enough to be doing it, or I'm not doing it right, or anything like that. Just know that when you're changing who you are, you're not clear about who you are. So confusion about who you are is a natural offshoot of that experience. But if you stick with it, and if you're like the little boy in the death card, and you're actually facing the releasing of old patterns, and you're actually watching the process of transformation, and you're watching things go to actual black, and you're being aware of every bit of information that's available to you, you're going to get what you need to give you more clarity. But you have to stick with the dark night of the soul. You have to stick with the darkest point before your dawn. If you're not willing to do that, you're not willing to level up, because that's what is required. So that's important to ask yourself. And all of this stuff is really linked into what we believe and what we think about ourselves, because the ego is the orchestrator of that information that lives in our subconscious and our conscious minds, as well as the collective conscious of our species. So we have to recognize that we have some role in what the ego has to work with, but it also has all these other components. So again, to take this less personally is like a huge message that the mushrooms were fucking telling me this past week. Like, really, really recognize what the human experience is. And stop looking at everybody else, like how they're moving and how they're doing. Like, it's an externalization of what's shadowed in you, okay? Like, you know, and I don't mean that as like, don't hold anybody accountable, don't hold anybody responsible. That's not the nature of what I'm saying. Just recognize whether you're balanced or not in your identifying of where problems are in this world. Like, are you seeing more externally? Or are you seeing more in yourself? And I honestly just feel like if you're not seeing the majority of them in yourself, you're not looking in the right place enough. That's just what I feel is the reality here. Because again, like it's a huge task to shift an external process if you're not willing to shift what's in here. I would almost say it's an impossible task to shift the outer world if you're not malleable and neuroplastic enough to shift yourself. So this exercise in willfully changing ourselves is practice for revolutionizing the world. And that's something to fucking meditate on for an Aquarius first quarter moon, I'd say. Because, you know, Aquarius is all about revolutionizing this world to one of a more, you know, society of brotherly love, of true community, of like seeing and helping and building each other up. We can't do that if we're not willing to admit what we do not know. We can't do that if we're not willing to clean up our own garbage. And we can't do that if we're not willing to sit with ourselves in the uncomfortable phases of transformation. Because guys, like, the society can't change without disrupting our comfort zones. And Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, the fighter, the revolutionizer, the disruptor, it's transiting Taurus, ruler of the second house, that house of material security and comfort zones and luxury and all that kind of shit. In some sense, we have to relinquish what we have considered comfortable for what we are needing to usher in to have that true revolutionary future. We have to recognize what we have to pay for. If you want a revolution in the world, you have to revolutionize yourself. That's the way this world works. It's the law of correspondences in action. As above, so below. But so below, as above. So it's like, if we are out of engagement with the individual process, meaning taking responsibility for our individual selves, then we are just subject to as above, our society, our culture, our parents, what we've been taught and shown exclusively. But when we take responsibility for being the individual who's responsible for activating themselves, individualizing themselves, then we have the ability to see our power to shift, and that is going to be reflected as above. It's going on here. And I honestly believe, like, as we do this work, we're rising in vibrational nature because we're getting rid of the blockages that keep the flow of life from toning through our energy centers in a pure manner. And it's like, as we rise in vibration, like, I believe in the physical law of entrainment. This, you can see this physically using tuning forks. When one is vibrating at a higher frequency, lower vibrational forks struck in their area are slowly entrained up in frequency. That higher one does not lose. It does not go down in frequency. It is entraining or pulling up the lower frequency to meet it. And that's what we do by personal transformation. And you might think, like, how does changing me change the world? Changing you changes how you talk, how you show up in life. And you are a huge unit of power in this fucking universe. And you need to recognize yourself as such. And when you go out with a higher vibration, other people can't help but be entrained to that. So if you're speaking with more patience, kindness, awareness, and grace, like, people will feel that. And maybe they don't mimic it back to you. But potentially they are going to spread that out because you have created a space and an ease in them, a vibrational, like, freedom in them through how you choose to show up. And that's the nature of the Pentacles. If we want to manifest a reality that we actually say that we want, we have to show up even when we don't get the reward back. Like, we really need to buy into the pay it forward philosophy where it's like, I trust that the work that I'm doing is spreading out. I don't have to see it come back to me. Right? Like, so many of us are like, oh, karma, do good things, it comes back to you. On a level, it's still buying into that ego perception of, like, I get rewarded for doing good things and punished for doing bad things. And maybe that's true on some context, but I don't think it's a, like, ethically elevating mindset to be holding. I think believing in being a gardener and sowing what you vote for, that is the pure, authentic motivation that we need to try to get to. I believe in a world like this, so I show up like this. Plain and simple, period. It doesn't matter how you react to me. It doesn't matter if I'm persecuted for it. It doesn't matter if I'm ridiculed. I sustain the truth of the magic I'm creating by showing up and investing no matter what payoff I see right now. We have to exercise that dimension of patience and the awareness of the process and accept that on all scales if we are going to fully embrace our ability to level up and to shift and change with even more resilience and even more, flexibility, and I would even say even more levels of comfort. That's the thing with going to yoga class, at first you're putting yourself in all uncomfortable positions and you're being asked to breathe, to sit there, to hold it, to maintain that level of uncomfortability. But if you go to yoga 4 days a week for 4 months, all of a sudden, all these things feel good. All these things you want to deepen, you want to expand yourself into, you want to grow into. That's the resilience level. That's where we're getting prepared for deeper practice, for bigger things, for expansion. That's the power of exponential returns. You start putting in the practice. You start showing up. You start investing your time and your attention, those real spiritual currencies. And again, you don't have to have money for literally anything. If you guys heard of YouTube, everything's on there for free. You can learn how to do anything if you're willing to pay your time and your attention to it. And that's facts. And again, it's part of accepting that personal responsibility for ourselves and recognizing I am the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul ship. I determine where this goes. To the level and the quality of which I show up, that's going to be the level and the quality of the future that I am seeding. And it doesn't matter. I feel like true morality is about being able to plant trees that maybe only your grandchildren get to sit under. It's about being able to stand in honor of something. Again, no matter what you see, no matter what happens, no matter whether that reward shows up. It's like, what do we believe in? Do we only believe in like doing good things when rewards are there? Or do we believe in a world where humans show up and do as many good things as they can? I believe in that world, so I'm trying to show up with as much awareness that is possible. But it's a process and a struggle, and it takes time. So acknowledge that and accept yourself for that, and recognize it's not personal. We all out here